Hello and welcome again. In this video, we will discuss the concept of control self-assessment or the CSA. Control self-assessment is an assessment of controls made by auditee staff. It is not made by auditor, it is made by auditee staff. It helps in identify gaps and potential risk earlier. It can consist of a simple questionnaire to facilitated workshops, and it can be in management meetings, client workshops, worksheets, and rating sheets. So all of these are kinds or types of how we can conduct control self-assessment with. Control self-assessment can be as simple as a questionnaire that requests your answer, either yes or no, to a long workshop. One of the examples of the control self-assessment is the one available online from BSI for ISO 27001. For instance, if we try to check this link, you will be redirected to a URL, and in this URL you will have or you will find a kind of questionnaire that is asking you about certain requirement in relation to ISO standard. You are doing a kind of a checklist and you are selecting if you have this control or not having this control, and after then you submit this sheet to the BSI to help you or to help them to identify the gap areas or the missing controls that exist or need to be existed in your environment to be compliant with ISO 27000. So there is a lot of information about control self-assessment and a lot of forms. Companies tend to do control self-assessment with the audit team, and it can be more comprehensive than just a checklist. It may include testing scenarios as well as a comment from the auditee about how specific control is implemented and what are the monitoring steps that is done by auditee to ensure this control remain effective. So why CSA or why control self-assessment? The primary objective of control self-assessment is to promote control monitoring responsibility to the functional area. We here engage workers, engage employees from different level to help in assess and even design control environment. IS auditor work as a facilitator in the CSA process, which means he just communicate with the auditee and make him understand what are the requirements included in the control self-assessment. So he work as a facilitator to help a client or help auditee or help the regular staff to understand the requirement. Involvement of line managers, which are the first line of management in fulfilling the requirement of control self-assessment, is a key success factor because they know the business better or know the process better. So they will be more contributing in terms of controls and the business requirement and so on and the actual process. Benefits of the CSA could include early detection of risk, identification of control gaps, more effective and improved internal controls, because this is like a result of for the first 2 points when we detect the risk earlier and identify gaps that will result of course in improvement in internal control, creation of cohesive teams through employee involvement, which will result in developing a sense of ownership and responsibility, as well as increasing employee awareness and increasing communication as all parties are communicating with each others. In the other hand, the CSA may have some disadvantages or cons, and one of these is that auditee may mistaken the CSA as a replacement for audit function. In reality, CSA does not replace the regular audit because, as you can remember, regular audit is independent, and independent audit provide more assurance and more trust. An audit is required by many regulation and many kind of work, like if you are a stock exchange company, you need to have external audit. If you are a service provider, you need also to have independent audit, and so on. So CSA could sometimes be mistaken as a replacement for an audit, but this is wrong. It is some in some cases, employee or staff may regard it as additional workload, and if the requirement of the CSA is more rigorous, this could result to damaging employee morale, and employee will think that improvement is impossible, so it could damage employee morale or minimize it. Lack of motivation may limit the effectiveness in detecting a weakness of controls. So this is simply the pros and cons for the control self-assessment. When we compare the traditional audit approach versus the control self-assessment, we will find that there is a lot of points in comparison. For instance, the responsibility in traditional audit is related to audit team and audit requirement. We promote the traditional audit to supervise the staff, while in CSA we are empowering the staff. Traditional audit is time-based, role-driven, while the control self-assessment is continuous improvement. In traditional audit, we have limited number of employee participation, while in control self-assessment, extensive participation is needed, and this is a result in traditional audit that we have a narrow stakeholders focus, but in control self-assessment we have a lot of stakeholders. So the key points in control self-assessment is it empower accountable employees, it extensive in relation to or in regard to the scope, it include a lot of employee in the scope who are discuss and communicate and assess the controls, which result is training, and staff from all levels and all functions do a kind of control analysis. And remember, one of the critical success factors in the control self-assessment program to be successful is that line managers need to participate because they can contribute better in relation to how certain process is working. Also, remember that auditor work as a facilitator in the control self-assessment process. There are a lot of types for control self-assessment, a lot of sheets. You may have your own sheet as organization that are derived from a standard of requirements such as ISO or BCI. Personally, I was working on a CSA derived from the ISO standard 27000, and it was very useful. Let me know in your comment if you have encountered similar practice before, and thank you for viewing, and see you in the next video.